Now, for years, grazing fields, pastures, and water have been known triggers of conflict during dry, adverse seasons for communities who rely mainly on livestock keeping. Pastoralist communities in northern Kenya are now embracing innovative strategies to mitigate degradation of rangelands and ensure sustainability of pastures for their animals amid changing climatic patterns. Well, Elphas Lagat is back from select counties in the north and brings us more.
Counties in the northern Kenya have such outstanding geography, breathtaking sights, wild animals such as elephants in their droves and giraffes at the Buffalo Springs Park make for such a rare feat. It is no wonder that Laikipia, Isiolo and Samburu are among leading destinations for thousands of tourists from across the globe. And while the beauty is undeniable, for decades challenges have also been mirrored throughout the communities here, especially for those predominantly pastoralist in nature. Hello. Changing climatic patterns has made the availability of pastures for the livestock an ever-ending circle of uncertainty.
Ardhi inakuwa kidogo, watu wamekuwa wengi. So hata zile sehemu ambazo tunahamia hakuna nyasi huko na mifugo wengi wameanza kuumia.
The undulating area geography, especially in Laikipia and Samburu, makes them ideal location for cattle rustling and banditry, which for a while has been a source of conflict among the locals.
Wamasai walikuwa wanahamahama kutoka sehemu moja mpaka nyingine wakitafuta lishe na pia kutafuta maji kulisha au mifugo. Lakini vile dunia imeanza kwenda, tumeona ya kwamba kumekuwa na changamoto mingi sana haswa katika hiyo kuhamahama.
Amidst other challenges like political interference and the presence of illegal firearms, the depletion of natural resources is posing an elevated threat for the communities here. And these residents have learnt the hard way that there is need for a new approach in land management, conservation and fostering of peace. Here in Samburu East at Kalama Community Conservancy, members of Nakuprat community have joined hands to mitigate the battle between grass and acacia reficiens, a thorn tree that hinders the growth of grass owing to the acidic stems and roots of the invasive species.
Sasa tunaona miba imekuwa mingi hapa. Samani tunaona hapa na kama kiwanja miba imeongezeka kukua mea kukua kubwa. Sasa wakati imekuwa kubwa nyasi imekuwa hakuna.
Grass ni kitu ya maana sana katika jamii hii because jamii ya wafugaji maisha yao ni nyasi, maji na kukaa kwa pamoja.
To have community engagement, which is an important part of this work. This means letting the whole community understand the idea of what we are doing, why we are reseeding some areas, why we are clearing acacia reficiens, and why plant grazing is the core or the most important thing in rangeland management.
When the trees are cleared, grass sprout. Elderly women also take up the role of digging up soil before seeds are planted in a cylindrical fashion that helps control erosion.
The wastes are supposed to decompose right there to be humus for whatever we are going to plant around. That's why we don't burn. We in fact even use to cover grass when we are doing planting, so that they can decompose on them.
Tuba.
Sobole.
Ekiji yangai?
Kaji Wilson Sintaroi.
Kaji Elphas Lagat.
In Naibunga Community Conservancy, we meet Wilson Sintaroi. He introduces us to Puntia stricta, locally known as matundai, an invasive species that is choking the grass here.
Hii kitu imetua economically. Sisi saa hiyo kitu imeleta umaskini hapa kwetu kwa sababu tunategemea mifugo na hiyo mifugo ndio hii kitu imetarget. Changamoto ya pili ni kitu inaitwa ardhi. Imetunyang'anya ardhi kabisa. Unajua tunasikianga mahali zingine unaambiwa kuna watu wanang'ang'ania ardhi mahali, kuna watu wanapigana juu ya ardhi. Sisi ile mnyama imetunyang'anya ardhi ni opuntia.
The plant, which thrives mostly during the dry season, is a thorn in the flesh. It is infamous for its little pricky thorns that cause injury to animals and is also an irritant to people, especially young school-going children.
Unaona watoto wa class 1 to 3 hii kitu wakienda shule. Sasa ni mimi hata mwalimu inabidi kuniita nimpate mtoto wangu juu ameingiwa na hii.
Through an initiative introduced to them by the Northern Rangelands Trust, locals here have found an innovative way of fighting this invasive species that covers 60% of their community land. You see, Opuntia, locally known as matundai, is not only an intrusive plant, but also a very selfish one, as it takes up a high percentage of the water and chokes up the pastures. Now, the community has adopted this brilliant method of mitigating it. Cochineal appears white in color. It is an insect that feeds entirely on the cactus. And when the weather is favorable, the insects can wither a plant in between a week or two. Community members are able to regenerate the cochineal in these greenhouses, where temperatures are slightly higher, favoring quick multiplication of the insects. Cochineal insects are at their optimum when temperatures are high.
So this plant usually stores a lot of water for the dry season. That is why during the dry season, as all the other plants are dying off, this one does very good. It actually flowers in the dry season. And now the beauty about the cochineal is it sucks that juice from this plant. So sucking the juice from this plant means it's also being, it's being forcefully killed off that water that is actually sold itself.
The initiative is carried out entirely by members of the Maasai, whose capacity has been improved over time and who have honed critical skills. Women here are very proud of what they have achieved in fighting matundai in just 3 years since the introduction of the initiative.
Huyo dudu wezi tu tupa, yenye unafanya tupe tu kasi ishe, hapana. Unaweka kwa makini ili hiyo dudu isikufe.
Opuntia has nice wild fruits that attracts wild animals, mainly baboons and elephants, and often is a source of conflict between the locals and the wild animals. Baboons in particular are the leading cause in spreading the seeds of Opuntia. Much more training is evidently necessary for the pastoralist communities to be able to mitigate Opuntia here in Naibunga to ensure that ultimately the communities are able to sustain their age-long economic mainstay, livestock keeping. Across the landscape, Ilngwesi Community Conservancy spans over 16,500 hectares, and coordinated settlements and uncontrolled grazing in the area has been the leading contributors to the depleted pastures during the dry season. The community, through repeated awareness and training of community leaders, are now spearheading setting aside grass-growing plots for production of hay.
It's the entire community that decided this village is fit for grass, and as a community we agreed that this is where we are going to grow grass. So when we build it, it doesn't mean it's only people who are living around here. It goes all other villages. We have 7 villages, but all the members can access grass from this field.
The Maasai community, who are the largest group in this area, have embraced paddocking. Sections of grazing fields are paddocked with structured grazing to allow animals to feed on the grazing fields in a planned, organized manner. Hay keeping is also an important means that enables locals face the adversity of the dry seasons between the months of September and January. For a subsidized price, families who are largely reliant on their livestock for livelihood are able to provide feed for their goats and cattle.
Kwa sababu unaona hii ng'ombe ijaama, ijakonda, kila siku mimi nakunywa maziwa. So kwa sababu tulikuwa tumetenga nyasi ambayo inasaidia hii ng'ombe ijaama. So hii miradi mimi naona kama iko na usaidizi kwanza sana kwa ng'ombe. So naomba sana hii miradi iwe inaendelea.
The challenge facing communities making hay are the lack of machines needed to make the hay in large quantities. Ilngwesi is an important area as it is home to an indigenous forest. Conservationists are keen on safeguarding the key resource with controlled grazing and move towards coordinated settlement to reduce inter-community conflicts, mitigate human and wildlife conflict, and to guarantee sustainability of livestock keeping in the long run. Now, for generations, the pastoralist communities living in northern Kenya have depended on livestock keeping as a way of livelihood. But now changing climatic patterns and changing times has necessitated the need to embrace innovative ways of ensuring pastures for their animals. Alphas Lagat, Citizen TV, in Laikipia County.